When we talk about the Vietnam War, we usually imagine helicopters, jets, and dense jungle fighting. But let us not forget the participation of armored fighting vehicles, especially tanks. Now, here we have the M48A3 Patton that saw its fair share of combat in the Vietnam War. So much so that the crews themselves came up with ingenious ways to keep themselves safe. One example is this model right here. Crews would, in some cases, stack sandbags along the sides and also the front of the tank, or at least the front of the turret, in order to create some kind of fighting position in the top of the turret. So at least when, let's say, they're out on patrol or supporting a convoy, they have quite decent amount of protection when they are, let's say, peeking outside of the tank. Well, I couldn't say for this guy, however, as he is sitting quite outside the realm of protection. But ideally, if let's say he's just peeking out or just checking something, he should remain relatively protected, as well as the gunner when he's peeking out right over here. Up in the front, you can also see some sandbags to also protect the driver. And take note that ideally this would have been added protection against projectiles such as the RPG rounds. So going back, this is the Patton from Tamiya, and although there are some shortcomings of the kit, as I stated in the inbox review, it comes together quite nicely to create a very decent looking Patton model. Now, as I mentioned before, when modeling the mantlet, there would be a gap between the surface of the turret and also the mantlet. So I went ahead and wrapped some fabric around that so that it's entirely enclosed and also depicts the mantlet cover used on the Patton. Other than that, I also added some texture on the turret as it was relatively smooth out of the box. I also mentioned that the height of the suspension is somewhat inaccurate, but I went ahead and just left it as is, since correcting this would take more time and also accurate measurements. But if you overlook that, it comes out quite decently. For the searchlight, the infrared and searchlight, you can see that comes together quite nicely. And I guess it could have come out better if the clear part was indeed plastic such as this, but we were only provided a clear sheet, but it's still quite decent. As I mentioned also with the inbox review, you can model this, or you can model the Tank Commander's cupola in two different ways, one of which has the Browning machine gun sticking out, or well, the barrel sticking out from here because it's inside, and you could also model it with the Browning on top. So it's two different configurations, and I don't think you would see two Brownings, one inside the cupola and then also one up top. Now this M60 did not come with a kit. I simply took it from my spares box and just added it in for some variation. Now the ammo boxes that you can see right here are also included with the kit, along with these rucksacks, if I'm not mistaken. You might be wondering, why did I leave out some of the sandbags here? It's because I wanted to intentionally make this still movable, as you can see. And if I did add some sandbags here, it might obstruct the movement. So going around to the back, this is pretty much simple. Weathered with Vietnam earth pigments and also AK interactive weathering pencils. The gun travel lock is also movable and operational. Although, let's see. Oh, there we go. Yeah. With my modification of the mantlet cover right here, or the canvas, it does prevent it from being movable. That's why it's kind of hard to really keep it in place like this. But as you can see, you can model it like that, where it's using the gun travel lock. There we go. Coming around the back, not much details to go around here. A lot of the assembly was pretty straightforward. Not a lot of complications with the kit. Clean up, relatively minimal. But other than that, the decals, everything provided here is as is. Although I did leave out the ones here on the side, the one that says US Army and also its number. But for this unit, it's from the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. Oh yeah, and also a little interesting fact here. For all the sandbags, I did leave them fixed to the turret already. However, for these ones, as you can see, just needs removing. And I have a bare-faced hull. So I did include the tiger face here. And if I'm not mistaken, or with the research I did, the tiger face was some sort of intimidation tactic, much like what American tank crews did during the Korean War with the bright yellow tiger faces painted on the Easy 8 Shermans and also the M46 Pattons. Though how effective it was is quite questionable. And even so, despite its effectiveness or ineffectiveness, it makes for a rather interesting look to the simple scheme of a tank with its monotonous color. So it does break that monotony and give it an interesting look. Now, despite its inaccuracies, it comes out to a pretty well looking M48A3 pattern, and it does make a good subject, or at least a base model, for modding practice and or also weathering. So as you can see here, I did both pigments, pencils, oil paint, and also modifications with the sandbags, and it does come out quite nicely. So despite the age of this kit, it's still quite the charm and something I would highly recommend for beginners and also those, let's say, advanced modelers who would probably want to take it relatively easy with a build or have something to mod or build into something quite different. It's a relatively cheap kit and comes out quite nicely. So there you have it. Once again, Tamiya's M48A3 Patton. To everyone, happy Thanksgiving, keep safe, and until next time, goodbye.